digital with a small d. The focus of our work is very much, as I said, on the narrative and the storytelling, and the technology is incidental. It's all about getting people using these technologies and getting them online kind of through the back door, essentially.
Cool. Yeah, we're going to say, I'm going to talk a little bit about where storytelling comes from, and just kind of probably jump about a little bit. Maybe we'll see. I don't know yet. I haven't decided, or maybe I've not had enough coffee. But digital with a small d is the absolute, that's the crux of what we're about. It's not necessarily about the technology. The technology does not come first. It's the people that come first. And like we were watching in the seminar just before dinner, where it's all about, it's that basic community work, and we'll talk about the technology later. One of the main things that I wanted to point out is that I think for too long, maybe we've been trying to bend people to technology, whereas in fact the opposite is always true. We should bend technology to suit people's needs. So the slide that we've got here, we all tell stories. We always tell stories. We all tell stories all the time, and this is what makes this work absolutely fascinating. From our point of view, and certainly from my point of view personally, it's the best job in the world, because what we get to do is travel all across Wales and sit down and listen to these people's stories that people have. And people make us tea, and sometimes we have cake too.
And tears.
And sometimes there are tears of joy and tears of laughter. It's very much like Russ Abbott's Madhouse. But if we come right back to think about the way that we're built, we're kind of predisposed not only to tell stories, but also to listen to stories. One of the best examples, I always think, is the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. And if you think about that story, that fairy tale, and you try to write that down in any other way apart from being an analogy, being like a story, it'd be quite a dry thing and quite a difficult thing to understand, because it's about vanity. It's about following the herd, being seen to be one of the crowd, and so on. Very difficult kind of concepts, social concepts to get your head around sometimes. But you can tell that story wrapped up in this fairy tale. You can tell it to a 5-year-old, and they get what you're talking about. So we use stories all the time. It's part of the way that we learn about relationships, the way in which we learn about society, the way in which we try and understand the world around us. Now, as an example, right, when I was a kid, I was really into Action Man, right? Not Action Man like you see him now, but the proper one with the hair, with the proper crew cut, and the eagle eyes, the full bit. And of course, we didn't have much money when we were kids, coming from up the valleys. And so every Christmas or birthday, maybe I'd have an Action Man, or maybe I'd have a new uniform for him, that kind of thing. But I remember one day, all my Action Men had gone missing. And me being me, I assumed that they'd gone on some, black ops somewhere, some secret operation, kind of, doing that kind of Chuck Norris kind of thing. And for years and years, I didn't really think anything about it, because, this is the way, an Action Man has got to do what an Action Man has got to do. But it was only quite recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, one Christmas, and I went home, and I went out for a drink at Christmas with my brother, whose name is Mog, very imaginatively. And we sat down and had a drink, and we got talking about when we were kids, and he said, yeah, about your Action Men. And I'm like, what about my Action Man? They went on this special op up the farm or wherever. Nah, I shot them. He said, what do you mean you shot my Action Man? He's like, yeah, I just shot them. Because for reasons best known to my mother and father, he had an air rifle, But, so there's me thinking in my head, I'm going, so you executed my Action Men. I'm thinking of them standing there, with the blindfold on and the last cigarette, just before, in front of the firing squad. So I put this to my brother, and he says, no, it wasn't like that. I lined them all up in a row and shot them all through the side of the head, because I didn't want to waste any pellets. So my brother kind of revealed this to me, and of course we laughed about it now. And I tell that story a lot to illustrate what storytelling is about. And one of the best reactions I've had to that was, maybe you should go to your brother, and there should be some kind of reparation about this. And you should go, make him take you to the spot where he buried them, dig them up, and then do a kind of I'm sorry ceremony. And I was like, yeah, that's going to work really well with my brother. But the point of that story is that it's kind of illustrative of when we tell stories, we put pictures into people's minds. And there's a lot in that I didn't say, that you'll be able to gauge about my relationship with my brother, my family, where I come from, what exactly I was doing when I was 27, and but also, of course, you know, maybe that image of the action man with the last cigarette, maybe my action man is Chuck Norris, maybe me in short trousers, you know, with a little moustache. So that's basically what stories are about. But the most important thing about stories is that we all have them, and we all love to listen to stories because they tell us so much, not only about the people that we're listening to, but also our own heritage and our culture. Move on one. But why is storytelling as a digital inclusion activity? Like I said earlier, it's about people and it's not about technology. So the first and most important thing every time is that it's the story. And it's these personal, wonderful personal stories that people have and people are willing to share. Sometimes people don't want to share, but people do end up sharing it within this workshop environment. And the best thing about storytelling, which is what makes it ideal coming from that kind of community perspective towards digital inclusion, is that it's very difficult to do storytelling on your own. So when we do our kind of digital inclusion workshops, it's not individuals sitting behind a computer with, you know, completely plugged in and immersed. It's people doing it together, people sitting around together, people swapping stories, people telling stories. And it creates a really wonderful sense of community because people feel part of something. People feel like they're sharing things with each other, but also giving to each other, giving and receiving. And, you know, this time of year as well, you know, we need to think back sometimes to what it is that makes us who we are. And part of what makes us who we are is the wonderful capacity that we have to give, and to give experiences, and to give culture, and to give history, and to give that personal history is a really awesome way for people to come together. Thank you. So, this is being funny, isn't it? I'm going to take this off. I'm going to switch on this microphone. Oh no, I'm going to stand over you. I don't like these things. They're funny, aren't they? God. How do I switch it off? Just leave it there. It's too technical. Excuse me. So digital stories, they're just short personal films. No more than 3 minutes. 3 minutes got to be the maximum. Although, you know, we've spoken to some people and, we've had like 3 hour stories that we've got to condense into 3 minutes. But the point is, people make them for themselves. This isn't about us coming in and saying, we've got loads of fancy kit, we've got loads of fancy equipment, we've got really, really expensive software and hardware, and we've got shiny Macs. It's not about that. It's about us encouraging people to do it for themselves, using their own photographs. So there's an element of archiving as well, digital archiving. So what we're trying to do is encourage people to become creators of their own personal media, not just passive consumers. And all of a sudden, when you start talking about being able to create and publish your own media, then you get into the world of online publishing. It just so happens the best way to record and catalogue this is using digital technologies, right? It's completely incidental. But then because it's incidental, it makes it a fabulous platform on which to look at digital inclusion and to look at that agenda. Now, whenever we do workshops, you never know what's going to happen. And people tell the most amazing stories, the most amazing moving stories, the most laugh-out-loud funny stories. And we've got a couple of stories lined up for you, which these came from the same workshop. And these are marvellous because these really bookend for me what digital storytelling is about. And the first one is just a story about a guy and his relationship with his father. And then we'll have a look at another one.
"17 years old, living in a granny flat in my parents' house. In the middle of the night, there's a noise like a chainsaw outside the bedroom window. Naturally, I'm concerned. I freeze, then a voice in the darkness. My father. 'Who are you? What are you doing?' Then the chainsaw becomes more high-pitched and disappears into the night. I run into the kitchen, blind without my glasses. In the gloom of the moonlight, I can just make out my father wearing my New York Yankees jacket. He quickly tells me something about hearing the same chainsaw noise, rushing outside and catching a thief on a scrambler bike trying to break into our car. I'm going down the road after him, he says. I'll come with you, I say, trying my best to sound brave. My dad runs out, starts the engine, whilst I throw some clothes on. We drive round in the darkness for about 10 minutes or so, never finding the thief. But when we return, a neighbour's already called the police. I remember the young policewoman coming over to the car to ask my dad some questions as he wound down the window. Only then, for the first time, did I look across and notice that my father was still wearing the New York Yankees jacket, now riding up past his belly button, and for the first time I realised that he's otherwise completely naked. "Oh my God," comes the involuntary cry of a traumatised 17-year-old. Thankfully, neither of them noticed. I'll never forget how impressively and eloquently my father conducted his interview with the policewoman, who at no point glanced downwards from a notepad to take in rather more than she was bargaining for. This says a lot about my father to me. His impulsive nature, his bravery, his liberal attitude towards dressing, and the fact that he never fails to make me laugh or raise a smile in just about everyone he meets.
So I love that story because we didn't know, we never know what's coming. And we didn't see that story till right at the end of the workshop where everybody sits down and watches the stories together. Fabulous story, but it's about what he doesn't say. It's so beautiful, that relationship that he has with his father, you know, and it comes through so strong. The number of stories we've got, right, it's really difficult for people to do a story and think, all right, I don't want to say anything personal. I know, I'll do it about my dog. The number of stories we've got about dogs, right, you wouldn't believe. But every one isn't about the dog at all. It's about what we're able to read between the lines when we listen to the story because we're predisposed for storytelling, right? This other one kind of illustrates the other end of what storytelling can be. But this was from exactly the same workshop as well.
You can't have children. The words of my doctor running round and round and round in my head. The pain, surgery, tablets. Nothing worked. So they booked me in for a hysterectomy, 18th of November 2007. The fear, tears, the heartache. Oh, it was a really, really bad time. But what a year. My mum's 50th. The outfit I bought for her as a present for my brother's wedding later that year. She looked absolutely stunning. My mum, my best friend. Her last words to me, "You'll have a little girl with red hair. Please don't have a hysterectomy." September 2007, the day she died. Those words just continuously repeat round and round and round in my mind. Doing her hair and makeup, playing the songs that she'd requested at her funeral, Lord of the Dance, and Disco Inferno, Burn Baby Burn. Oh, what a comedian. She always had to have the last laugh. But those words again, I honoured them. 6 months later, Mother's Day, I had this warm feeling in my stomach. Standing up on top of the mountain, scattering carnations where we once scattered her ashes. A pregnancy test, positive. I was 8 weeks gone. The 2nd of November 2008, my little auburn angel was born. 2 years on, how she has grown. My mind is filled with new memories every single day. But the memories of my mum and her gift to me, never forgotten.
So that story, I mean, you know, that's a really moving story, and you can see that the personal nature of these stories. And what's great about it is that these people's stories you're listening to, they hadn't made a film before. You know, they didn't know about digitizing old photographs. They didn't know about audio recording and editing, and we did this in 2 days. But because of this, you know, people were then able to take like a story like that and make sure, she said, I'm going to take this home because it turned out the day that we did that story was the anniversary of her mother's death. And she was like, I need to take this story home today on DVD because this is for my daughter and she can watch this. And in that way, my mother's memory will always live on. So it's got that personal element to it, which is really, really important. So it's all about approach. So I'm going to hand back over to Angharad to talk about this.
Yes, approach. I mentioned earlier we were going to talk about cakes. And here it is. We're going to run with a cake making analogy now. Having learned about what storytelling is, we're going to talk about our approach to the digital storytelling workshops. And we would like you to think of this approach as a cake recipe, specifically a Victoria sponge recipe, because it's a simple cake. It's basic. The ingredients are readily available. It's not particularly posh or expensive. You don't need anything special to do it with. It's just a good, standard, tasty cake. And with any recipe, you will get a list of ingredients and you will have time to put, how long it goes in the oven, at which temperature. You've got all that methodology and maybe a bit of equipment that you need. And similarly, Mog's best digital storytelling recipe also involves these components, yeah? With cakes, you follow the recipe, you mix it all up, you put it in the oven, and you fill and decorate it. And similarly, you do so with digital storytelling. Our recipe, so this is the Victoria sponge thing, our approach is to encourage the skills legacy within communities, and as such we try and make the equipment that we use as free and sustainable as possible. Our workshops function so that people can produce and license their own digital stories from start to finish using this particular recipe. Any recipe, you have a list of ingredients, and for the digital storytelling cake, our ingredients are some simple bits of hardware, a PC-based system, not, as Mog said, a fancy, expensive Mac. So you need a computer. You will need a microphone, and that microphone can cost as little as £40. Headphones are optional. It depends on the space that you're working in. And in terms of the software, all the software that we use is free. It's all readily available to download from the internet, and or we give it out at the workshop so that people can go and install that on their own systems and carry on making their own stories and training other people, helping other people to make stories. And getting that skill set cascaded out into the community. So I said, in this way, we aim to leave a skills legacy and a software legacy, which we support through extended facilitation, advice and guidance where that's needed after our training has been delivered. So if we carry on thinking about this cake making recipe analogy, and specifically about this Victoria sponge, yeah, due to the way that we approach our workshops, you don't need anything fancy. All you need is the equivalent of a cake tin. And like I say, not a fancy cake tin. You don't need like a special silicone one that you can get, or one of those ones with the clips and the fancy bottoms that you can push out so you get the cake out. You don't need that. All you need is a cake tin. It doesn't matter where it comes from or what it looks like. And that's the approach. It ensures that everything that we do is sustainable and is geared towards promoting this digital inclusion. And just like baking, the more you do it, the less time it takes and the better you get at it. Very, very quickly, when you talk about storage of the stories that are produced by us, all our stories, not our stories, all the stories that are made by our workshop participants, they're owned by those participants. But if we have permission, we upload them to Vimeo, a free video sharing site, and we then host them on our blog, which is also built completely on freeware. Doing this allows us to not just host these stories and show a working example of best practice around freeware and online technologies, but it also allows people to share the stories easily. All they need is the address on Vimeo or on our blog, so that they can then go and share those stories with their friends and family, because increasingly it's easier for people to share it online than it is to make copies of DVDs and hand them round to their family, because it's something often that people want to do. They're proud of the stories that they make and they want to share them often. So it's really a very important part of the work that we do, that everything is made available publicly online. To further continue this cake making analogy, we think our approach isn't, we're not saying it's the be all and end all. We're not saying that this is the way to go about digital storytelling. Just like making a Victoria sponge with my mum's recipe might not be the way that your mum does it, or your nan, or whatever. There are always variations on these things, and it might be that you have a glut of a particular type of ingredient, and that's why you want to make a particular cake. You might have loads of lemons, therefore it would be sensible for you to make a lemon drizzle cake. The same is true with our workshops. If there is a specification around the type of technology that's available for us to go in and work with around this narrative and storytelling stuff, then we are flexible enough to be able to go and do that. If people want to focus on digital photography as a means to tell stories, then we can do that, and we can get people online, including them digitally in the work that we do by joining them up with Flickr, or if we do some animation work, then, for example, we can, like with the stories, we can share those on Vimeo and on our blog. So it's all built and geared towards this digital inclusion. So we take a step back and think about the essential ingredients in the digital storytelling cake. We think about the skills that are transferable there, and what we can take into other variations on these workshops, so the carrot cake workshop or the lemon drizzle cake workshop. The skills that are passed on through the workshops that we provide include the following. Creative thinking around storytelling and media is promoted through games. Communication skills are improved. Audio recording and editing skills are passed on. People are trained in photography and editing, film production, media literacy of all forms, computer management skills, including organising your folders sensibly, your workflow, etc. DVD authoring, multi-platform publishing, and web design skills. So they're all the kinds of skills that can go into these other workshops, and there are a whole bunch of workshops that are available through Geeks. The workshop menu is available on our blog, and all the details that are there at the end. I won't dwell on this now, but that gives you an idea of the number that are available. And just with an eye on time, I'll just run very, very quickly through some of the workshops that we do. I've mentioned animation, of course, already. That's a nice, easy session. Again, all using free software, which is really easy, really simple to use. We do mobile phone workshops, and we also have worked recently around mapping tools, telling stories using maps. And this was a really nice example, this particular one. It was a project that was run as part of National Theatre Wales that we helped generate stories for. We've mentioned digital photography workshops as well. We've recently finished a series of workshops around digital photography, where we were asking people to take photos which tell stories and then share them online. as I said, these recipes, they're always retaining this flavour, this distinctive flavour of the storytelling, even though the ingredients might change, even though the technology that's available to us might differ, or the abilities of the people that we're working with might differ. That doesn't matter. We're flexible enough in our approach to be able to deal with that and to tailor our sessions so that they work for the people, because the whole point is that people enjoy what they do with us. That enjoyment hopefully sparks enthusiasm, and then naturally will lead people on to picking up these tools and further developing their interest in their own way and in their own time. The recipes help us deliver in an organic way. As many of the outputs can, many of the outputs are often used as resources and inspiration for future sessions. The map work, for example, recently is one of these. We've become quite enthused about the power of maps as a storytelling tool, and it's something that we're looking into currently. So there we are. We've told you some stories, and we've given you a bit of a gallop through what is digital storytelling and how it is a springboard to digital inclusion. And now it's over to you.
Right. So we've kind of looked a little bit of stories. They're personal things, very personal things. And sometimes when you're in workshops, or sometimes when we're thinking about workshops that we might want to develop, we're always wanting to try new things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But usually when you get a group of people together, you'll have different kind of character types, and not everybody is always willing to share their story. Sometimes people don't have a lot of time. They don't have that 2 days to give to us to do a story start to finish. So we have to come up with quicker ways, using new technologies, that we can demonstrate basically why new technologies are important, why new technologies are good to use, why digital inclusion is important. And we have to do that in like half an hour, because that's the amount of time that this community group can offer us, all right? So sometimes what we do is a text story. This also works really well with Twitter, because with storytelling, I'm sure that some of you here today have already heard stories of organisations that people work for. It's very difficult to condense down, and people often think to fit their story into 2 minutes is way too short a time. But what we try and do in the workshops is to get people to think about the very essence of what it is that they're talking about, the very core and the very soul of the story, the emotion, the tone, the colour of the story. That's what we're interested in. But sometimes people need a push. So we've developed some things like this, which are brilliantly silly generators, which are generators for ideas of stories. So what we're going to ask you to do, and we've run this a few times, is I'm going to generate a random scenario, and I want you to put that into a story and text it to that number, which is pointed directly at our website. Okay. Now, a couple of notes about this. This facility to put text comments to our website is a free service for us. It'll cost you, I have to do that thing about regular terms and conditions apply, so it will cost you 1 standard network rate message to send something to our website, okay? But before I generate this, again, this generator as well, this was developed again using free software. As I said, the hosting on the blog, again, that's completely free. I remember doing this, we were up in top of Blaenau Gwent somewhere. No, we weren't, we were up in Aberfan. And it was a Derby and Joan club. And we were trying to encourage these older people to use mobile phones. And eventually we got a couple of texts up on the website, but the best one was, "I don't see the point of this. What's wrong with writing a letter?" But I just love the fact that this woman had taken the time to text that to our website. Brilliant. Right, so crack your phones out, and I'm going to hold down this generator. Now, there's 5 of each things. I think I got Jeremy Kyle, Delia Smith, Batman was on there, Sinbad for some reason. And they're in a variety of places, including on the moon, in the kitchen. and they're doing things like karaoke, karate, football. Okay, so I'm going to let it go in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I forgot that Jeremy Kyle. Of course Jeremy Kyle is on there. See, it's because I was talking about generating your own content and not being a passive consumer. Sorry, is this being streamed? Sorry. I got to do that brain mouth filter thing. You forgot to warn me about that. Okay, so the topic for your story that we want you to send to our blog, which then you'll be able to go and have a look at yourself. We'll do this again this afternoon and see what comes out. Jeremy Kyle is in a spaceship playing football. Now, to me, that's quite a good thing, because he's not on TV.
That's the start of the story, is it?
Sorry, good point. Start your text with the word story, and then your story. Now, the good thing about this, we were talking about isolating down your story. You've got 160 characters. That includes the word story. So you haven't got much time. Much room, I mean, sorry, not much time.
What are we supposed to be making the story about?
The story is based around Jeremy Kyle is in a spaceship playing football.
So anything about
Yeah. And what we're trying to do here is trying to really push that kind of fast kind of creativity. Push it out there, do it. See what comes out the other side. Sometimes we do this kind of free writing. I mean, it is a form of free writing to coax stories out of people. And it's often the case that people walk into workshops and say, right, I'm going to do a story about my cat. And they completely, like this, you know, this is what I want to do my story about. And then the next day they will come in and they'll say, I've completely changed my mind because I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning with this idea. And it's amazing to see the way that this can turn people around and the stories that they want to tell go from being that kind of mundane, almost kind of plodding along story to something that's absolutely inspirational. And it turns into that because they have spent time listening to other people's stories, talking to other people, and the more space we make for each other, the better the stories become. Right, so I'm going to jump over to the blog and try and refresh that. Hopefully this is still working. Where's my phone? Where is it? Please work. Oh, I see there are people connecting to my wireless. Can I ask who's got a laptop named Leafy? Yeah, can you stop eating my bandwidth, please? Can I also ask, somebody's got a laptop called NTBINT00210, who's that? It's running off my phone, so. God, see? I know I said it was free. Did I say it was free? Free. Ooh. I know, this is it. There we are. Right, that's going to take a while to... Can I get rid of that? Oh, brilliant. Bear with me a sec. Right, we'll come back to that. So there's a little example of kind of the quick and easy kind of ways of generating stories, and we do all kinds of things, like we got a few flash style generators which you can put into your you can enter your own text. So for example, we talk about your first kiss through the medium of a Jeremy Kyle number. Cool. The text number to text to is also live on the website as well, so just for everybody watching online. So yeah, we've talked about stories, you know, to generate that story, to generate that quick interest, that quick kind of win, that quick involvement, that quick engagement. But it comes down to what's personal, and as well as that, I mean, it's very good fun, isn't it? Right, let's pull this back up, and I shall carry on, and we'll see if we can get that thing back up by the end of this session. Right, I want to talk about tinkering now, kind of moving on, because I think this is what we're about, and it's definitely what I'm about anyway. But I think the word tinkerer is often associated with people who don't really know what they're doing. So in that case, it does apply to me, doesn't it? No, but I love this quote that I found. So it's what happens when you try something you don't quite know how to do. Guided by whim and imagination. When you tinker, there are no instructions, but there are also no failures, no right or wrong ways of doing things. It's about figuring out how things work and reworking them for your own purpose, yeah? Tinkering, at its most basic, is a process that marries play and inquiry. And I love that. I love the idea of digital inclusion and the way that we work with people being about creativity, but also being about play. What we do when we go into workshops, we don't go in with a definite way of doing things. We want to know, what is it that you want to do? I'm not saying I'm going to know how to do it, but I'm sure we can find a way around it. And that's the absolute essence for us. And it's using these free tools that are online, that actually exist online, or you can download, using mobile phones. You know, one of my questions is always, let's have a look at what you got in your pocket. Tell me about the tools that you use every day. And in this way, we can tinker with the outputs that we get from the workshops, be they digital stories, be they groups on Flickr, be they text messages, and we can mash up all of this content and then take it and turn it into something else, just with a little bit of programming, with a little bit of messing about with another tool. So the whole process becomes organic. And what we're trying to do is encourage the people that we work with to become tinkerers. Because when they become tinkerers, they become creatives themselves. It becomes personal, it becomes relevant, it becomes something they're interested in doing. And the more they're interested in doing, then it becomes sustainable. So if we take my tinkering one step further, some of the things that we're looking at moving forward, digital storytelling is mixed media, a mixture of that traditional model, which we saw earlier, which is photographs along a timeline with audio. Why not pictures moving with a Twitter timeline? Why not stories existing in a 3D environment? Why not digital stories that exist purely online as a series of links to different little blogs? What about stories embedded as mouse over objects in programs like Flickr? What about using blogs like Tumblr, of which we've got a blog, just to post? You know, you give yourself for every day for 5 minutes for the next 6 months, I'm going to post a little photograph and it represents how I'm feeling right now at this particular time for 6 months. Come back 6 months later, you've got a lovely little project. You know? Physical and virtual interaction in physical and virtual spaces. Now that sounds awesome, doesn't it? But what I'm talking about now is thinking about the way that we interact with these machines that we call computers. I was reading, I'm into my physical computing, and I read something fabulous the other day. A guy said at a conference, a urinal in the men's toilet is more intelligent than your computer because it's a lot more physical. Now, especially when we start talking about creativity, and especially around things like storytelling, which is like me doing this. Now, a computer doesn't understand that. It just understands that I'm just a giant finger. So how can we change that in order that we can interact in a much more natural way? Because like I said, this isn't about technology being, we have to fit to what technology is. No, forget that. We'll tinker with technology and make it do what we want it to do. Yeah? It's playing with our form, that traditional digital storytelling form, that traditional way of getting online. You know, the traditional way of you have to use Microsoft Word or Microsoft Publisher. You have to run this course in this certain way. No, forget it. Let's chuck it all out the window. Let's play with the form. Let's adapt. Let's be creative. And it's homebrew. There we are. We've come on to homebrew finally. Homebrew in the truest sense of the word. That's what we're trying to promote. In the computer sense, I mean homebrew. In the old days when there was no real such thing as Windows, where people made their own programs and swapped them with each other. That sense of community is so important for us. Because everything that we create, everything that we make, and everything that we encourage the community to make is sharing it together, creating communities of interest. And like I say there, it only costs, it's a matter of time and hair, as you can see. I just wanted to mention this quickly, just as we kind of running up towards the end of this little session, and we'll see if I can get the blog up for you as well. something I say a lot is that although I do this job and I've been involved in filmmaking and music and media in one form or another for the last, I don't know how many years, but I don't really know what I'm doing, and that is where all my confidence is. Yeah? And it might sound like a funny thing to say, but I have absolute confidence that at any given point in time, I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know what's happening with this machine. But that doesn't mean, because I don't know how this works today, it doesn't mean I won't know how it works tomorrow. And that's the kind of attitude we're trying to put across. We can learn together, we can find out together, because we'll tinker together. Yeah? Because you never know what's going to happen, and always being prepared for the unexpected, which you can't prepare for, which is absolutely brilliant for our work. Because what we do, we walk into community groups, and we sit down and we have a chat and we have a cup of tea. Hopefully we have some cake. The better people out there who we've worked with, you know who you are, who've brought us cake. Because you never know what's going to happen, right? Now, this next story, I wanted to show, because I think this is just one of the best examples that I can think of that. It's a good job that I don't really know what I'm doing, because otherwise I wouldn't have necessarily known how to deal with this.
Never hope and crow. Blackfoot, Comanche, Dakota Sioux, Apache, Inuit, Cherokee, this is the story of the Red Hill Sioux. Came from a place that I once knew, and this is the song of the Red Hill Sioux. You better watch out, just in case we fall in love with you. Yeah, you better watch out, just in case we fall in love with you. 'Cause this is the chief of the Red Hill Sioux.
Just leave you soak that one in for a minute. Well, that's just genius. The guy is an absolute genius, right? So we're doing this storytelling session, and we got a little handheld recorder that we record people's voices with. And he said, right, Mog, I'm ready to do my story. Okay. We're up the top end of Merthyr there, kind of Brecon, like headed up towards Brecon. I said, right, so let's go and record this. We wanted to find somewhere quiet, you know, usually we'll go in the van or something. So he goes out into his car, he pulls out a guitar, and then he pulls out this authentic North American headdress. And he says, can we go down into the woods here, you know, by the reservoir? And I'm like, okay. And then the next thing I know, I find myself standing in a forest by a reservoir just outside Brecon with this guy with a headdress on singing this song, which was his digital story of the chief of the Red Hill Sioux. I think that just goes to show for me that you never know what's going to come out. And I will also guarantee you as well that for the rest of today, if not tomorrow, you will be singing in your head, this is the story of the Black Hill Sioux.
We're on to sniffing glue now, look. Coming back to, this is about tinkering again. And the idea is that this is from a 1970s punk zine. And the attitude is the same. It's about tinkering. And also, you don't need to know everything to get somewhere. So this is a nice little diagram. Use 3 chords, A, E, and G. Now form a band. And why not? Because if you can play A, E, and G, you can also play G, E, and A. You can also play E, A, and G. Personally, I'd go for A, G, E, and then you're into the blues, and you see. And from that, all of a sudden you know 3 things, but you put them together and they start to multiply. And you can put them together in different ways, and it's completely up to you. So when we talked about becoming a brewery earlier, what Angharad was talking about is saying, this is our recipe. You don't have to do it in this particular way. You can take bits out of it and put it here. You can make a film about whatever it is you want to make a film about. You want to talk to us about how to use social media best to get involved in this narrative process? Then we can involve social media. We can pull in Google Maps. Map photographs onto those maps using things like Flickr, using text, using photographs, using any media that you want, using guitar chords. What if the chief there, instead of doing his story like that, he could have done it in text with the chord diagrams. Why not? It's interesting, it's different, it's mixing it up, and it's changing the way that we engage with and the way that we look at media, but also at the end of it encouraging people to go and publish and share. And also, one of the important points for us is that whatever people produce doesn't belong to us at the university. It doesn't belong to the assembly. It doesn't belong to the project, to Communities 2.0. It belongs to that person, and they license it as such under Creative Commons. So if they decide to publish it, they decide to publish it, completely out of our hands. Okay? Want to move on to making it relevant. This is Angharad stuff again. But this is basically what we're talking about, is what we were hearing a lot about just before lunch, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Mark Austin's kind of stolen our thunder a bit. He
Yeah.
said it all for us, really. It's just the whole thing about making it relevant. When it's relevant to people, they're interested and they're enthused and they will use it, they will carry on with it, they'll run with it. When it's relevant, it becomes sustainable. And that thing about it becoming an interest to them, that helps it become embedded and it helps it become an everyday thing for people. It helps make it personal for people, and that personal aspect is again what makes it relevant. It all comes back to the relevancy of what you're doing with the digital tools, not the tools themselves. The technology is incidental until and unless it's pointed out. It's all about the stories for us. If there's a story, people want to hear it, and we can use these tools to help share the stories with people.
And just kind of summing up as we come to the kind of close of this, I think that idea of that personal part, the relevance to make it embedded is so important. So kind of in summary, what we're talking about is we want to make it relevant so it's sustainable. You know, myself and Angharad going around, for us, and I think for the project, and in terms of digital inclusion, if we went in with shiny Macs, very expensive software, and said we are going to come and do storytelling with you, and then we go away and we take all our kit with us, and we take that expertise, it's another kind of wasted opportunity where people are so enthusiastic when they go through this process. Those 2 stories we watched earlier, and especially the second one, it created such an amazing emotional reaction in the room that people get inspired by what other people say to them, by the stories that people reveal to each other. There's another great one that's on our website, and it was by a lady we met in Carmarthenshire, and she did her story, which is all about her life and the way that her day works out. And there were people who'd worked with her for 10 years who didn't realise that when she disappears on a lunchtime, she goes and looks after her husband's mother, and there's another old person that she looks after, and then in the evenings, and they didn't know, and she revealed all this in this story. And it's just so emotional and so powerful. And when you've got that emotion and you've got that power and you've got that personal aspect, people become motivated and people become excited and people want to carry on doing it. So what we've got to do is make it sustainable, and the way to do that is to make it relevant. Also, like we were saying earlier, we offer that extended facilitation after the initial workshops to try and support the people to carry on doing this in the community. And the crux of it is this storytelling as a jumping off point and to release creativity, not just with pen and paper, although pen and paper is a great place to start because that can be digitized too. Animating a pen and paper, fab, love it. Let's do that as a workshop. We should write that down. But it is that jumping off point. But the jumping off point starts with a room full of people together, swapping stories and eating cake. How cool is that? That's our job. And, you know, this is me, you know, be a tinkerer, and I say break things to make things. I don't mean go smashing laptops. Although sometimes you feel like it. I was thinking the other day I was going to take on to Dragon's Den a series of toys that you can throw at laptops when they don't work, but they don't break the laptop, and make noises like it's smashing screens and stuff. Anyway, but break things to make things. If you do have a laptop that doesn't work and it's completely dead, why not take it apart and have a look? Why not? You know, you can't break it anymore if it's already dead. Also break things to make things in terms of think about the way that you approach things like photography. The way that we approach things like this is a film, yeah, or this is a story, this is the format. Why not change the format around? Use your imagination, use that creativity. And it's got to be about people and not the technology. Technology comes last, technology is incidental. But the technology that is there makes it really exciting because now a lot of the technology that we use is free, which means anybody can get it. It'll run on a PC, like Angharad was saying earlier, any kind of PC, as long as you've got admin rights to it. Different seminar altogether, right? But if you've got a PC in your house, you can run all of the software that we run. You can make all of the stuff that we've made on our blog. You can make our blog. You know, you can do all of it because it's completely free. And of course, what we want you to do is share and share and share and share. So if you publish on your Vimeo channel, why not copy us in and say, look, I made this film, I stuck it up online, you know. We can take that and put it into other communities of interest, put it into other places, and all of a sudden you're getting in touch with more and more and more and more people, and that community of interest becomes wider and becomes more sustainable, becomes more exciting, and always building. So that's just about it. I'm just going to check. Oh, it's not loading. Look. Here's our contact details. If you want to get in touch. Oh, I think I've fallen off the thing. Oop. One sec. It's disconnected me. Well, I'll try and link that back up now as I'm speaking. Yeah, so we will take any questions at this point if anybody wants to, well, I'll say that, Angharad will take any questions. Go on.
It's interesting how we come almost full circle, really. Storytelling at one time was the main way of promoting it. It was the way we made form of communication. And then someone invented the printing press. And bingo, you know, our communication means changed, and now we're now digitizing stories and communicating. I mean, in a way, it's quite interesting because I'm not sure if I picked up exactly what you're saying, but it seems to be quite random in a way. You give me bits of a jigsaw of the community, little bits of it, you know, but you haven't given any context in which I can understand where those stories are coming from. As an outsider, wanting to engage maybe in listening to these stories, thank you, it would be really useful to have some context. And I'm wondering whether you ever go into a community with a challenge, because if you link up the earlier session about local democracy, if you like, and the opportunity for people to have a new voice with this new medium, which isn't controlled at the moment. That's the beauty about it, where the
Yeah.
printed material is
Yeah.
controlled. You're giving people back a voice. I mean, do you ever go into a community and say, right, we'd like you to tell us stories about what things you want, what
Yeah.
you'd like to see that's different about your community?
Yeah, absolutely, and it depends what the nature of the workshop is. So, you know, we work with, we do like train the trainer stuff, but we'll also go in and work directly with community members. And the majority of the time is spent talking about exactly that, because, you know, to pull out those central themes is got to be what it's all about. And earlier on, when we were looking at the mapping thing, which we did with the National Theatre, and that project was specifically about engaging people in the county borough of Bridgend, and there were 6 themes.
Yes.
There were 6 themes where people would post their story to a map, and you could have love or hate, light and dark, us and them. So you had to tell a story. Now that story could just be text, it could be a photograph, or it could be a video, you know, however you wanted to do it. But it was between distinct parameters. And what was really interesting about that, coming from Bridgend myself, was how much light there is in Bridgend, and how much people were saying very, very positive things about Bridgend. And it was really interesting because it wasn't a specific community, it was a community of place. So we went and we worked with people from the Stroke Association, we went and worked with the youth service, we went and worked with this just massive wide range of people, and it was really interesting to see those stories of place as well. So yeah, I mean, it's completely flexible, and sometimes we are asked sometimes that we want you to come in and help our guys tell stories about X. And sometimes that's a dangerous thing, because what you don't want to be doing is telling people what their story should be about, because it has to be a personal story as well. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, often just it's that you're asking about the context is often set by the organisation that are asking us to come and do the work. We will respond to that in tailoring our workshops, you know, according to the instructions that we've been given. So it's hard to go into that, you know, to give you a context in that set, because they all differ so much. You know, they're very the unit workshops they're always very unique to the people that are that are undergoing the training.
Cool. I just managed to get the website back up. Sorry, can I just go on?
You haven't mentioned any storytelling that might last. I have a tape of my mother's, her sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
It lasts 3 hours and is pure magic.
Right.
But I've only got it on audio.
Right.
Now, I also want now, in the next few weeks, to record an old lady who's 95. She's all there.
Mm-hmm.
She's works as a maid all her life. She's never married. Now then, there's no problem in recording what she wants to say, but how can I put some other elements into it to make it more interesting?
If you've got, like you say, this woman is 95, does she have any old photographs about what she's talking about? To illustrate it with old photographs is often a very, really engaging, especially, we did some stories recently down in Pantyfanon, and some of the pictures were just amazing, because they're of Ammanford from like the 1920s, and these photos are crumbling away. So what we've been able to do as well is to help people to digitize those photos so so they become electronic as well.
Yeah, I think that might be a second phase, because she's in a home.
Right.
And she won't have all those.
Mm.
Whether she does have, I know some of her relatives who we might be able to do a collection.
Yeah.
But I want to get hold of her story, her
Yeah.
life story,
Yeah.
because it will reflect our area, if you like.
I think you make a really good point, and it's something that we're really interested in. When you listen to stories, and if they're from your area, and your story, if you tell a story, everybody that tells a story, you can't help but betray your history and your culture. It's inbuilt, and it's wonderful to hear it within the tone. But with that, I think it's going to be a longer kind of process by the sound of it, yeah?
Yeah, but I'd have to make it a good afternoon session.
Yeah.
Because next year she might I don't know.
Yeah, and it's things like that. It's those stories that otherwise we are not going to capture. Those stories that are going to be lost. And from a kind of cultural history point of view, you know, kind of that cultural history, that capturing, that digitizing of these stories is a fantastic resource as well.
Would you recommend a video of 5 minutes of it and then ignore the video camera then just to get her to talk? Because
yeah.
I don't want a video for 3 hours, do I?
Or even a couple of shots of her now. You know,
well,
if those old
yeah, that's
photos
what I
don't
thought. I could
exist.
take a video camera with me just to get a few live shots for a couple of minutes.
Or even stills, you know, it doesn't need to be.
Oh, right.
It doesn't need to be video necessarily. No, absolutely no. Primarily the digital stories that we're doing with, they are audio and still pictures.
Yeah.
You know, still pictures illustrate the story that is being told. The pictures are supporting the story. The narrative is the thing
But the
that's most important.
Yeah, gathering the pictures will be a separate one.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
I want is to capture her face telling me the story.
Yeah.
Just for a few minutes, and then we get the camera and just.
But you know,
talk.
it's you do that in whatever way best suits your resources. Basically, if it's a video camera that you've got, then use a video camera. If it's an audio recorder and a stills camera, then use that. Whatever. That's the whole thing that we're trying to encourage. You do what you can. You know, you do what you can do and what you want to do with what's available to you, and kind of don't get fixated on achieving a certain thing and having to have certain tools in order to do that. It's the wrong way around. It's about telling stories using computers or tools, not using computers to tell stories. It's a really subtle difference.
That's why
But-
just put the mic on the table, get it
Yes.
out,
Yeah.
talk to
That's,
them.
that's,
So I thought possibly a video just for a few minutes, and then
I mean,
shove it out to the way. Just let her talk to my.
what we always say is that, or what I always say anyway, is video can very quickly become very much of a pain, and that's why we stick to still photographs, just because it's easier and it's quicker. But with a kind of project like you're talking about there, you're going to generate a lot of content, so therefore it's a post-production, you know, it's sit down and editing kind of thing as well. So, and that's what we, as much as possible in our workshops, try and steer away from, because we don't want to influence that story. You know, we want the person to edit it themselves, but it's not always possible. You know, so. But that sounds like a fab project.
Can I just suggest...
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name. Can I just suggest that might be something that Mog or Angharad talk through with you over tea about available free software that you could use?
Absolutely.
Do you ever come to Northwales?
Yes, we could potentially.
Yeah.
We're all
Over the place.
we're all over the place. Yeah, as you gather.
In more ways than one.
I just wanted to point out before Mark's question, if you don't mind, but I've got this up. I just want to read through some of these because they just tickle me now. Mog's wearing pink Communities 2.0 socks. I wonder who sent that in.
That was his test.
It's actually these socks that I've got on were hand knitted in Austria.
But they perfectly match the colours for the day.
Yeah.
I thought it was genius.
So there we are. These are the stories from today now. He kicked the ball, but instead of the ball going into the net, he went into the net. An exploitative alien cruising between the stars was thrown a curveball, which it didn't know what to do with. So it tested its DNA and gave it a kick in. After a busy show, Jeremy Kyle fell asleep. When he awoke, he found himself on a spaceship. He quickly realised he was lying in a gold mouth. He jumped. Breaking news, Jeremy Kyle's been banished from Earth for being... Currently, he's on a shuttle to an unknown planet over to Bob for the football. But what I was trying to demonstrate with this is that it's a really nice community tool, because, you know, it's like a message board, but you can access it because you can use what's in your pocket. Yeah? So, you know, we had a great one up in the top of Blaen y Gwent there, and somebody texted us complaining about the state of the roads or something, wasn't it? So, you know, it can be that kind of community activism tool as well. And it's a lovely tool for free. Mark.
How would you follow that? It's just a couple of observations rather than a question. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, it's just a couple of observations, I think, rather than a question. Somebody mentioned, I think, during Mark Austin's speech this morning about
social return on investment. I don't know whether there's any work, because of the academic backgrounds to your work and digital storytelling in general, but whether there's anything going on, because it seems to me that digital storytelling is the perfect way of evidencing social return on investment of digital inclusion activity, but whether there's a way of quantifying the outcome of your work. And secondly, I think because of the example of the website that Mark Austin showed, I forget, autocracy or something, I can't remember exactly what it was called now. Localocracy, thank you. Whether as a community consultation tool in terms of mobilising communities to get things off their chest, whether digital storytelling has proven to be a useful tool for that exercise as well.
I think it's very easy to move from what digital storytelling is and the way that we're talking about it, and move from that into that generic kind of vox pop in, recording an event and just putting the best bits in. And it's very easy to move from that point, because what you end up doing in a lot of ways is taking the control away from those individuals. Whereas what we're saying is that the control of the content should always remain with the individual. So once people just say, come along to the event, record everything, then edit it. Now who am I, to start editing somebody else's story? It becomes that kind of, it's ethically difficult. So sometimes it's unavoidable, but if you can sit down with the person and go through it, then that's a lot better. But we try and avoid it as much as possible. And in terms of it being measurable, well, it's such a difficult thing, because how do you measure something like, that story from earlier that I mentioned where the girl we were working with, how do you measure the fact that she was taking that DVD home because it was the anniversary of her mother's death and she was going to use that to show to her daughter for, it's a very difficult thing.
Just to answer, sorry, I work with Mog and Angharad. Just to answer that question, if anybody else is interested, at the university there is research being undertaken in this field. We're just in the process of recruiting a PhD scholar who's going to be working with us, measuring the impact of some of this work, but also there are other research. It's not huge, the body of research isn't huge, but there is research out there around the impact of digital storytelling. So I'm happy to send you links to possible documents on that. So
Thanks, Carl.
you've got about 7
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah. So,
It was just an extension really of the point to say really whether the stories themselves are in actual fact the measurement factor, because you actually leave a product. You've got something there, something tangible, something to see and hear.
I mean, I think for us as well, it's about it carrying on. That's what we are heading for, so that when we go and we leave that skills legacy. So the whole process is you go through the process start to finish. So you learn how to do it.
It's learning by doing.
Learning by doing.
That's the thing.
And so therefore for us, one of the most important things is if we come back to that community group in a couple of months' time, is it still going on? How can we help you to make sure that this goes on without us being there to necessarily facilitate it? So it's leaving that as well as the physical DVD object, which can be used for all manner of, it's content for your website. It can also be used, as advocacy. It has so many different uses, but are there new stories being created as well? And there are some communities where we've worked where it's ongoing, and the people who came on the initial training with us, they've gone on and trained other people, and then you've got this knock-on effect. And I think if there is a measure to be had, I think for us, specifically within this project, then I think that would be one of them.
Recently I was looking at the People's Collection, Wales, where in actual fact the facility or the applications available for people to add content and produce kind of digital stories is actually, there as part of the, cloud computing idea. So have you at all kind of, worked with online applications to enable communities to produce digital stories?
As we're always investigating new possibilities, but what we find is that it will depend on what people want. So, you know, the National Libraries project, which is fabulous, the People's Collection, great stuff. And so when I was talking about the old photographs from down in Ammanford, that's where we've started. You know, I said to the woman who brought them in, she's in her 80s or something, was she? And these old photos, and I'm like, can we come back and do a workshop where we can show you how to upload these onto this site? So yes, it'd be about being aware of other applications, but sometimes it's difficult to dive straight online, especially with older people, and especially because of the physical location of where we are. Now I'm running a connection off my phone, and we can take a load of laptops with us, but then the bandwidth on this gets eaten up very quickly. So it depends, really. You know, you know, we've got a sucker and see a lot of the time. You know, you never know what's going to confront you when you walk through the door. You know, but as much as possible, we always try and investigate new tools, and the People's Collection, I think, is a great site as well.
I'm aware that time is pressing. I just wanted to say something about the People's Collection, because that piece of work is very much at the heart of Communities 2.0 discussions at the moment, and we're looking at ways of working across the project with that. Before we finish, I just want to mention, because we've talked a little bit, I'm going to point to you now, Alan. We have talked a little bit here, and people have raised the issues about the stories themselves being an output, if you like, or a product that you have at the end of this process, which can be fantastically useful in terms of advocacy. Alan is going to shrink away there. I don't know how many people know Alan Thomas, but basically, okay, Alan started on the Digital Story Road 2006, made a digital story actually with another team that I was involved with at that time. And basically that story, the first story went out there wide, actually went on television as well and across the web. But since then, you've made a second story and gone on, and basically a lot of Alan's stories have been shown at very high profile conferences around digital inclusion and on the web, particularly with the message about the importance of digital technology for people who have a disability. It's been a fantastically powerful tool, because if you see Alan's story, it does what 20 PowerPoint presentations about disability and internet access could never do in 2 minutes. So, and you're now, what are you, digital champion for Wales?
Digital champion for Wales, for my 13 talks in the UK government, and David Cameron appointed me.
And I think up on the Click, Connect, Discover website, there's a photograph of you sitting alongside David Cameron and Martha Lane Fox. So I just wanted to mention that, because I think Alan's journey, it really speaks volumes about the power of this. Okay. Catherine, are we out of time?
You've got 2 more minutes.
2 minutes. Oh, there you go, guys. Any last question?
Yep, I think there's a hand.
Yeah, just a quick one. You mentioned earlier about tinkering, which
Yes.
is something really, really good. But how do you encourage that in people? I think most of our learners are too afraid of either breaking it, or they think they know it already and want it to just work. How do you encourage that kind of willingness to tinker?
It's a process. You know, it's not starting with the tinkering. It's starting with that becoming comfortable with the kit. And one of the things that we always say in workshops is, don't worry, you're not going to break it. And then I'll try and break it, at which point, no. But it's just the way in which, you know, we're trying to deliver, and we're trying to deliver with community work at the heart of what we do. So it's always asking questions of the people we're working with. Well, what do you want to do? Which way do you see that going? And then, you know, they'll come up with these ideas, and we'll be like, well, I don't know how to do that, but let's have a look. And then you start in that. It's just starting down that road of having a little play and having a little tinker. The guys we did the Flickr workshop with, fabulous. And some of the photos that they ended up putting up online, because I was saying, let's have a mess about with colour separation and layering and all this kind of stuff. And the next thing, they're coming out with these things that look like it's from outer space. And it's just a couple, isn't it? And they're like in their 50s. Just amazing photographs that they manipulated using the free software that we gave them. So it's little by little. I mean, I don't mean full-blown keyboard hacking and stuff, you know, but little by little get into push buttons, see what happens, you know.
It's giving them the confidence to be able to do it. Because that's the thing, what we can't really achieve in the space of the workshops is to make these people expert in what they're doing. Our job is to encourage them and enthuse them enough to give them that, you know, so that the desire to go away and find out a little bit more and make that little change. They didn't quite have time to, those things, that's what's important. So it's the confidence and encouraging that independent thought, that what I want to do with this, as opposed to what will it let me do.
Yeah. Cool. Last one.
One last point. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate whoever took this initiative in terms of reaching new audiences, because it is quite brave in a way. It's not your traditional way of reaching audiences and getting people involved in digital inclusion. So I really want to congratulate you on that, because there's absolutely no doubt you can see the results of what you're doing. But I would like to ask, I think it's fundamentally important we do get some good monitoring work and reporting, because if we're to enable this work to continue and other people to take visionary, exciting new work to reach these audiences that we have to reach, we need evidence.
Absolutely.
Of what the impact is of the work, and I would really like to amplify that, because I think it's fundamentally important. But congratulations, it's brilliant.
Thanks very much. And just to point out that it's a very rigorous monitoring system that's actually in place within the Communities 2.0 project as well, because it comes under the WEFO funding. So that monitoring is very much ongoing. But we're always looking at ways of being able to further underline the narrative of the worth of this work that we're doing as well. So, but thanks very much. So there we are, fabulous. Well, thanks for coming, and we'll be around. But give us a shout if you need any more stuff. This is free.
Do you need to see the blog address or anything again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, contact details.
Thank you. Right, we need to relocate now.